The secret of mind's strange obsession with embarrassment. The human brain forgets thousands of ordinary moments every week. Conversations disappear. Daily routines fade. Most interactions dissolve almost immediately from conscious memory. Yet a single embarrassing moment can remain psychologically active for years. A sentence spoken incorrectly. An awkward silence. A failed social interaction. The event reappears suddenly and without invitation, often late at night, often in silence. This creates an important psychological contradiction. If the event was objectively minor, why does the brain continue replaying it with such intensity? Social psychology suggests the replay is not happening because the moment was painful alone. The brain is responding to something more socially significant. Embarrassment threatens identity exposure. The individual is not only remembering what happened. The mind is analyzing what the event may have revealed socially, and once identity becomes involved, the brain treats the memory differently, not as ordinary experience, but as social risk. Chapter 2: The Surface Misunderstandings. People interpret embarrassing thoughts incorrectly. They assume the replay means weakness, overthinking, emotional fragility. But this explanation is incomplete. The brain does not obsess over embarrassment simply because someone lacks confidence. It obsesses because social mistakes activate psychological threat detection systems connected to belonging and acceptance. Humans are deeply social organisms. Reputation affects interaction. Interaction affects inclusion. Inclusion affects psychological security. Because of this, the brain monitors social errors with unusual sensitivity. An embarrassing moment signals possible exposure, not physical danger. Social danger, and socially, perception matters. The discomfort often comes less from the event itself, and more from what the brain believes the moment communicated to others. Did it create incompetence, weakness, awkwardness, loss of status? The replay becomes an attempt to interpret social meaning, not merely emotional pain. Chapter 3: The Hidden Mechanism of Social Surveillance and Social Psychology proposes that humans constantly simulate how they appear inside the minds of others. Most of this process remains unconscious until embarrassment activates it intensely. An awkward interaction creates a rupture between intended identity and feared perception. The individual intended to appear intelligent, calm, confident, but the embarrassing moment creates uncertainty. The brain immediately begins monitoring the damage. This is why embarrassing memories often replay with unusual detail. The mind reviews tone of voice, facial expressions, timing, reactions, almost like surveillance footage. Not to relive the event emotionally, but to analyze how the self may have been socially interpreted. This mechanism is psychologically important, because human identity is partially constructed through imagined observation. People do not only experience themselves internally, they experience themselves socially, and embarrassment disrupts that social image suddenly. The replay begins as reputation monitoring. Chapter 4: Why the Brain Prioritizes Embarrassment. The brain does not store all experiences equally. It prioritizes psychologically threatening information, and historically, social exclusion carried survival consequences. Isolation reduced protection, resources, cooperation. Because of this, the human nervous system evolved to monitor social risk carefully. Embarrassment activates this ancient monitoring system. The event signals possible rejection or exposure of weakness. As a result, the brain gives the memory disproportionate attention. This explains why embarrassing moments remain vivid while neutral experiences disappear quickly. The replay is not irrational. It is predictive. The brain repeatedly activates the memory in an attempt to reduce future social mistakes. Essentially, the mind is running behavioral simulations, reviewing the event, searching for errors, attempting to prevent future damage. But this creates another psychological problem. The more attention the memory receives internally, the more important it begins to feel, and importance increases replay frequency even further. Chapter 5: The Imagined Audience Problem. One of social psychology's most significant findings is known as the spotlight effect. Humans consistently overestimate how much other people notice them. After embarrassment, this distortion intensifies dramatically. The individual unconsciously assumes the event occupies other people's memories with the same intensity it occupies their own, but psychologically, most observers remain focused primarily on themselves, their own appearance, their own concerns, their own insecurities. This creates a major perceptual imbalance. Internal attention becomes mistaken for external importance. The brain interprets repeated self-monitoring as evidence that the event must also remain socially relevant. But in reality, most embarrassing moments disappear rapidly from public memory. The replay persists because the mind confuses internal focus with collective attention, and once this distortion develops, social anxiety increases further. The imagined audience becomes psychologically larger than the real one. Chapter 6: The Identity Threat. Beneath shame, embarrassment becomes psychologically powerful when it threatens identity consistency. The discomfort rarely comes from the event alone. It comes from contradiction. A confident person fears appearing weak. An intelligent person fears appearing incompetent. A socially composed person fears appearing awkward. The embarrassing moment challenges the identity the individual believes they maintain socially. This creates psychological instability because humans seek consistency between self-image and perceived appearance. The replay begins as an unconscious attempt to repair that consistency. The brain repeatedly analyzes the event, searching for reassurance. Did others actually notice? Was the mistake serious? Did the moment permanently affect perception? But identity-based embarrassment becomes difficult to resolve internally because the threat is symbolic. The event feels larger than the situation itself, not because of what physically happened, but because of what the moment appeared to expose psychologically. Chapter 7: Why Silence Intensifies Replay. Embarrassing memories often become stronger in isolation, especially at night. In silence, without distraction. This happens because the brain lacks corrective feedback without external interaction. Uncertainty expands internally. The mind begins reconstructing the event repeatedly. Each replay introduces exaggeration, speculation, distortion. Social psychology shows that self-perception is partially stabilized through interaction with other people. Humans interpret themselves socially, but in isolation. Internal speculation becomes dominant, and speculation rarely remains neutral. The brain fills informational gaps with imagined judgment. This creates cognitive looping. The event grows psychologically larger with each replay, despite remaining objectively unchanged over time. The memory stops functioning as simple recollection. It becomes internal social simulation, a repeated attempt to predict how others may still perceive the self. Chapter 8: Final Psychological Reflection. The replaying of embarrassing moments reveals something fundamental about human psychology. People are not only concerned with what happens to them, they are concerned with what experiences appear to mean socially. Embarrassment exposes the deeply social structure of identity itself. Humans experience themselves partly through imagined observation. The mind continuously monitors perception because belonging, recognition, and interpretation remains psychologically important. This is why embarrassing memories persist long after the event disappears externally. The replay is not merely emotional weakness. It is the consequence of a brain designed to protect social existence. And perhaps this explains the strange intensity of embarrassment itself. A minor social mistake can feel psychologically enormous, because the mind is never evaluating the event alone. It is evaluating what the event appeared to reveal about the self in the eyes of others. What's one embarrassing moment your brain still randomly replays at night? Comments.